Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Natalia and I are very pleased to have you here. And I'm going to start by quickly introducing myself. I am a conference interpreter and an interpreter trainer. I work in the Arabic booth. And since 2016, I have been exploring remote interpreting, and that was the same year that I finished a master's in training interpreters. So combining the two things together, I have started doing quite a bit on remote interpreting, especially after the lockdown and the COVID-19 put a lot of us at work, out of work and at home. Natalia, of course, is going to introduce herself when she starts. But we would like to know a bit more about you. So if you could get your mobile phones, whether you are online or on site, and go to a website called menti.com. So it is there on the screen. And when you arrive at menti.com, you will be asked to enter a code. So if you could please enter that code, 520546. And I will leave it on the screen for a minute because we would like to ask you a couple of questions. And it is anonymous. All of us will be able to see the answers, but then they are not attributable to who answered them. So it is just a way for us to get to know your background a bit in remote interpreting. So menti.com, and this is the code, and it will be on the screen again.
Maha, could you please share your presentation one more time because we can't see it?
Oh, you cannot see it?
No.
Okay. Let me see. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now we can see it. Thank you.
Very good. Could you see it before, or is this the first time that you see it?
No, it's the first time.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm sorry. I was sharing it, actually. So it is good that you let me know then. So if you could go to menti.com and enter this code, 520546, then I'm going to share my other screen so that we can have that poll live together. And don't worry if you haven't gone there yet, because it will be on the screen in a minute. So I'm going to share another screen. And Victoria, it would be great if you can confirm that you can see it. So if you give me 1 second. Then it is this screen that I want to share. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Very good. So you are voting if you have done remote simultaneous interpreting before. And I really have no idea how many people to expect, but at the moment, only 11 of you voted. So I will leave it on for a bit longer. But for those who have voted so far, it is obvious that more people have done remote interpreting than not. So you can participate in this, whether you are joining us online or whether you are joining us on site from the camp itself. Okay, so for those who have done remote interpreting before, the next question is, which platform have you used? So you could type that just for us to have an idea. And it doesn't matter whether it was a remote simultaneous interpreting platform or whether it was something like Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams, etc. So it doesn't matter whether it was made for remote interpreting or if it is a web conferencing platform. And actually, the Zoom is getting bigger and bigger on the screen, and this means there are more people who have used it. So if there is a platform that gets repeated, or if there is a word that gets repeated, then it shows bigger on the screen. So far, it is only Speakas that was created for remote interpreting out of the platforms that you have used, as far as I know. For the rest, they are web conferencing platforms. Okay, Kudo as well, VoiceBoxer, definitely, they are all created for remote interpreting. Viber, okay. Interprify also was created for remote interpreting. So thank you for sharing this. And then the last question is also for you to type your expectations of this workshop, because Natalia and I will be with you for an hour for the presentations, and then we are going to be having interactive style of a workshop for an hour and a half after that. So we are with you for quite some time. So it would be helpful to know what your expectations are. So you could phrase that in your own words. We are going to be having question and answer session, but also we are going to be having group discussions in smaller groups and so on. So if you have any particular expectations, if there is something in particular you would like us to cover, then please share that with us. Okay, so the first answer is in, and you would like to hear about our experience and recommendations about remote simultaneous interpreting. Yes, we will cover that. And how to get through the system and become a Kudo interpreter. We can cover that as well. I think that's part of Natalia's presentation. And I'll just give you a couple of more seconds if there are any other expectations. And how to become a member of remote simultaneous interpreting platforms to get interpreting tasks. Okay, we'll be covering that. We'll definitely look at how to become ready for remote interpreting, and we will look at things like terms and conditions, pricing your service, and a host of other things. Okay, so if we take this as our presentation of what you'd expect, then I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to give the floor to Natalia. So Natalia, the floor is yours to start your bit of the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Happy to be with you, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Natalia Fedorenkova, and I am a Russian English conference interpreter based in Moscow, Russia. And I will tell you more about myself a little bit later. But first, I would like to share with you our plan for today. First, we'll start from two presentations from me and from my colleague Maha. After an hour of presentation, we will have the Zoom interactive session where you can ask all the questions live, both online and offline participants. And also we will discuss real life cases. Now I'll share my presentation. So can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can, Natalia.
Yeah, okay, perfect. We will start from the general overview of RSI, or Remote Simultaneous Interpreting, its origin and prospects. It all started around 70s with over-the-phone interpreting, but of course it was consecutive remote interpreting then. The technology is making it possible to see and hear the speaker via internet connection and interpret simultaneously actually emerged quite recently. And by the way, RSI was first designed to service offline events, not online events. So the idea was that all speakers and the audience were on site except for interpreters. It was used mostly for events located in hard-to-reach areas or large events with a lot of working languages, so to avoid the need to fly interpreters to the venue. But now, when the era of online events came, RSI platforms also had to adapt and fast to the changed conditions. So simultaneous interpreting itself, as you well know, is a young discipline, but RSI is even younger. So no wonder that first it was met with disbelief and skepticism. And there were and still are a lot of questions regarding the quality of interpreting the remote interpreter can provide. With limited visibility, frequent technical glitches, and sometimes far from the optimal sound quality. And we discussed RSI time and again at various interpreting conferences, and we talked about upsides and downsides, and the outlook wasn't so promising, but no one could foresee the advent of COVID-19. And with COVID-19, we are now facing a new, strange reality where large-scale offline events are no longer possible. And so we have to adapt. And RSI today, unfortunately, is the only way in those cases that we can provide interpretation services, whether wished or not. So not everyone, of course, was ready for that. And that's the purpose of our presentation today, of our presentation and hands-on Zoom session, to give you all the information you need to succeed in this new brave world, so to say. As for my experience, in RSI, I started early in 2019. And I learned everything I know about RSI from experience, from my mistakes, so to say. And well-known quotes that never before has Steelers been so close to failure. And in fact, I think it's about me as well, because very often I was really close to failure. But I learned hard way from my mistakes. Because at that time, I didn't have anyone to turn to, anyone to advise me. I had to learn myself. But thanks to the experience I accumulated now, I can help you, those who are new to RSI, to mitigate most risks. So now let's get from theory to practice, right? Back to business. So let's discuss how to get ready for the remote work. First, what do you need to do? You should make sure you have all the necessary equipment, and I will talk about it in detail a little bit later. When you have purchased all the equipment you need, the second task is to choose the remote interpreting options, and there are several of them, 3 basically: an RSI platform, Zoom, or any other video conference software with inbuilt simultaneous interpretation function. Or the third option is interpretation using available programs like Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, Viber, Telegram, etc. The third thing you need to do is you need to instruct the organizers and speakers. So make sure everyone has quality, professional microphones, headsets. So, and it already was mentioned before, and it's really very important. The fourth thing is preliminary test sound check with organizers and speakers. You have to check the incoming and outgoing sound quality, and usually this sound check is conducted 1 or 2 days prior to the event. And the fifth, the last but not least, is that you need to assign the person responsible for technical support before and during the event. And now we will talk about all this in detail. Yes. So the first thing you need in terms of equipment is, of course, PC or laptop, and better two of them, or a laptop desktop plus the monitor. Because on one, you need two screens. On one screen, you will see the RSI platform or the Zoom conference or whatever. On the second screen, you will be able to look at your glossary, maybe surf online, etc. So just convenient to have two screens. Then what do you need? Of course, you need high quality headphones. And these brands you see on the slide are recommended by RSI platforms. And I also mentioned my own headphones, Sennheiser H599. You can see them on the photo. But of course, everything depends on your comfort. So you should choose those headphones that comfortably sit on your ears, because you have to wear them for long. And also, I just discovered when I was choosing my own headphones that there are closed and open headphones. Open headphones means that you'll be able to hear your own voice better, so they are not sound insulated. But not all interpreters like that. So there are closed headphones as well. So here you should choose what suits you best. Then this is just the recommendations from UTIC, and you can find them on the website. You can see on the slide, so you can just study it later. So there are also a list of brands certified and recommended by UTIC specifically for simultaneous interpreting. Then what else do you need? Of course, you need a microphone, a professional USB microphone. And this is the microphone I use. It is Blue Yeti. It has two modes, cardioid and omnidirectional. And for interpreting jobs, you need a cardioid mode, because it means that it doesn't collect sounds from all the environment, only the sounds coming from one direction. And this is the microphone recommended by Interpretify. But of course, you can choose whatever professional microphone you like. Then, what else do you need? You need Ethernet high-speed connection. And on this slide, you can see the recommendations provided by various RSI platforms. So basically, the recommendation is from 4 to 10 megabit per second. And believe me, it's not some high requirements. And to demonstrate you this, I placed here the screenshots of my own Ethernet connection and Wi-Fi. So you see the speed of my Ethernet connection is about 100 megabit per second. And Wi-Fi, you can see it's less, but still 2 times more than required. And this is just for information. My Wi-Fi is another computer with my more powerful Wi-Fi module. So it means that the speed doesn't only depend on Wi-Fi, whether it's Wi-Fi or Ethernet. It can depend on the computer type. Next, I recommend to provide channel redundancy to be on the safe side. It means that you need to have 2 internet lines, which can be coupled in a channel switchover router like this one on the picture. In this case, if one main line is down, the other line takes over automatically. Mobile internet also can be used for an emergency. For power backup, to secure yourself against any short-time power blackouts, you can install also UTC units for all networking devices. Now, we have covered all the equipment necessary for RSI. But you should remember that you can never eliminate all the risks. They are always there. You can only minimize them. and make sure you have the best sound quality possible in the circumstances. So it's also very important point to talk about these risks. In my view, the interpreters should not forget to inform the clients of possible glitches, because when we depend on technology, software, and a lot of equipment, we cannot guarantee flawless and harmonious operation of them all. So we are not, it cannot be made responsible for them. We can do our best, we can consult the client, we can check the setup beforehand, take all reasonable precautions, and still we cannot guarantee that this setup will work when needed. So this is a sort of disclaimer I think that you need to do when you take an interpreting job. So, as some of you know, Victoria, our moderator, me, and our Russian colleague Vladimir Shokov also conduct such RSI webinars for interpreter and business. We have done in total 3 of them. And just for reference, you can visit our landing page for a webinar. And in case you're interested, you can register, and if you have the group, we can conduct another one. And the result, this webinars resulted in drafting checklists for interpreters and organizers, describing all necessary setup for remote work, and you can freely download them clicking on these links. So there is an English version and Russian versions. So now let's move on to the second point on my preparation list. We have discussed now all the equipment that you need to take the remote interpreting assignment. And now let's look at the technical options, how you can provide remote interpreting. As I already mentioned, there are basically 3 options: RSI platforms, Zoom, or interpreting using available programs. So let's start from RSI platforms. What is an RSI platform? It is a program specifically designed for remote simultaneous interpreting, and it has all the necessary functions. There are these are, you can see the list on the screen of the most popular RSI platforms today. So these are Codant, Prefine, Interactio, Voice Boxes, Picasso, Speak, and of course there are more of them. My main experience lies with Interprefy, though I also tried working with Speak, a Russian RSI vendor. As I already mentioned, I started to work remotely with Interprefy early in 2019, when RSI was not yet the mainstream. And after accumulating some RSI experience, I started wondering about other RSI platforms. How do they work? And what's the difference between various platforms? What are their strong and weak points? And I found out that no one has ever compared them yet. And there is no even any open information on them. And the majority of my fellow interpreters didn't even see these interfaces. So I decided to carry out a small research, and I took these RSI platforms and identified the comparison criteria, and you can check out my article on RSI platforms comparison clicking on these links. So there is an English version of my article and the Russian one. Unfortunately, we don't have time now to dive deep into them. So I just, these are the comparison criteria. You can read it all later. The organizers promise to make the presentations available on the website, or if you don't find it, then you can contact me. I will send it to you. And also, you can check out my article, as I already mentioned. So these are the interfaces of RSI platforms. In this case, it's Kudo. And I just added them to my presentation to give you a glimpse of what an RSI platform interface looks like. So here you can see the basic function, of course, is the mic. Yes, you can switch it on and off, the handover function. There is outgoing channels, incoming channels. These are the audio channel that you hear, to listen to, and those you are interpret into. And there are also chats with the moderator and your partner where you can agree on the handover, etc. So you can learn more checking out my article. So this is Interpretify. So it looks different, but basically it's very similar. Voice boxer, interactive, speakers, where speak. And also at the end of my article, there is a summary table where I summarize all information about them, and it's very transparent and easy to read. You can compare easily all the platforms by all the criteria, and also there are prices here. Now, let's move on to simultaneous interpreting in Zoom. It's the second technical option, as I mentioned. So main difference between RSI platforms and Zoom are as follows. First, it's not possible to hear your partner on Zoom or any other interpreter for that matter. It means that you also cannot do relay. And technical support, Zoom doesn't provide technical support. You have to think about it yourself. So there's to assign the responsible person. Yes, of course, now we have certain mechanisms how to work with Zoom, how to ensure we can hear the partner. For that purpose, we now use either external connection via messengers, or you can connect to the same Zoom conference as a participant from the second device. But I will speak about it later. But there is no inbuilt function for this in Zoom. Now, if you decided to do simultaneous interpreting in Zoom, what do you need to do? First, you need to purchase a Pro plan. It costs about 15 USD per month, and also additional Add Video Webinar package, 40 USD per month. Then, of course, you need all the equipment I mentioned before, and not only for the interpreters, but for all the speakers. Then you need the second device, a laptop, tablet, phone, or another computer for communication with the partner or relay. Then 2 pairs of headphones, the main ones you will use to listen to the speaker, and earbuds to listen to your partner. Then technical support, make sure the responsible person is assigned in advance, and control all the devices. It's probably the most complicated part. You should switch on and off your mic in Zoom, timely put on and off 2 headphones, monitor 2 chats, one for communication with your partner and the other with organizers, or even maybe more. So it really is not intuitive and sometimes overwhelming, I would say. What do I recommend also to look to read about Zoom? You can find additional materials on interpreting in Zoom here. For example, a very good Alexei Sivorkin's blog. Alexei Sivorkin is my Russian colleague. You can find on his website frequently asked questions and answers to them. It's very helpful indeed. And also I like the video on YouTube, for example, by Untitled, and there are others, of course. And if you're on Twitter, you can then look for this hashtag R1NT, and you'll find a lot of information on remote interpreting. Okay, so, and the third technical option is interpreting using available programs. So, of course, we do not recommend, we interpreters, I mean, do not recommend this option, but there are situations when, for example, your client doesn't trust Zoom and wants to use programs already installed in his company. And in this case, we can use this option. So main difference between interpreting using available programs, RSI platforms, and Zoom is that for this type of interpreting, 2 devices are required. So to computers, desktops, laptops, and phone, tablet, whatever. 2 different programs you'll have to use. It can be all kinds of different programs. Doesn't matter. Third, one-way interpreting only can be provided. It means from one language into another, because you will listen to a speaker on one program and interpret into the other. So only one line. And for this case, you need a moderator speaking 2 languages if you want also to answer the questions from the audience. Right, so this was the third option. Now, the third point on my preparation list was that you need to instruct the speakers and organizers, yes, educate your client. So what's the most important about that? First, big no-no to inbuilt mics of the desktop or laptop. The quality is not just good enough. You have to instill it in the brain of your client using whatever means. Then, second, big no-no to tablet microphones like this one. They are just not suitable for simultaneous interpreting. They gather too many environmental sounds, a lot of background noise, paper rustling, etc. Then, big no-no to Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet cable internet. You can argue that they both can have good speed, but Wi-Fi is just not stable enough. And then, big no-no to noisy environment. So instruct your client and organizer and all the speakers to close all the windows and to switch off noisy fans or air conditioners and to get rid of other people in the room. And what becomes even more important in the case of online interpreting are materials, right? You can argue that materials are always important, and they are, but in case of online interpreting, due to the poor sound, you have to rely on something. You have to fill the gaps, and you have to know the subject and the presentations and the speeches of your speakers well. Then, working in a pair. It's also important in all situations, but for online interpreting, it's even more important because everything can happen. Risks are much higher than on site. And in case something goes wrong with one of your interpreters, they are still online and can do the job. And that's the best argument for the client. Next, what's also important, speech and reading speed. Please instruct your speakers to slow down due to the poor sound quality. And, of course, sound check in advance. And the majority of these tips are taken from Techful World, and I provide the link to their marvelous video. You can watch later on YouTube. Technical support, do not forget to assign them a responsible person. RSI platforms provide the tech support, but Zoom or any other programs do not. And so I think that probably I do not have the time already to speak about this, but it's also very important marketing of a remote interpreter, yes, because we hear a lot these days about the fact that online interpreting is easier than offline interpreting because you don't need to go anywhere where you do not have to travel. You can do it just in your slippers and your pajama and with a cup of coffee and what can be more comfortable, but you have to educate the clients that it is not more comfortable to do it all on your own without the technical specialists to be responsible for all of your equipment and internet connection. And you have to explain why we insist on the minimum order, the half day, and why we cannot take 3 or 4 assignments for one day, why it is better to prepare for 1 or 2 assignments at least, to prepare better than to, do 3 or 4 assignments And of course, you'll have much less time for preparation in this case, even if it is feasible, which I doubt. And you have to educate the client that remote interpreting is much more tiresome, in fact. So on this positive note, I would like to pass on to my colleague Maha, who will continue the topic of client education, speak about the pricing and standards for online interpreting.
Thank you very much, Natalia. So let me then share my screen and we go to client education. So let me go to the Zoom bit and share my screen. And it would be great if you can confirm that, that you can actually see my screen this time. So is it visible?
Yeah, I can see.
Are you able to see my screen? Fantastic. Okay, very good. That's what I wanted to know. Very good. So let us look then at client education. And client education for this particular or this specific setting is how we can help our clients to move their meetings, which are usually done face-to-face, to online meetings, because it may not be a very straightforward or a very easy process for many clients. So I think a good starting point is to start listening to the client's requirements. What is it that they want to achieve? And discuss things like the meeting format. What is it that they want to have? What kind of discussion? And then you can advise, is it going to be a dialogue, what kind of platform you need. If it is a webinar, what kind of platform would do a better job, and so on. Because as Natalia was just saying, not all platforms have the same features. So it would be a good idea to know what the purpose of the meeting is, what it is that the client wants to achieve, so that you can advise on the best platform for their purposes. That is something that you can do because you would know much more than the client does what the features are of the different platforms. You know, for instance, that platform like VoiceBoxer allows only one speaker at a time to be visible. If that is the case, then maybe it is not the best fit for a panel discussion. Maybe another platform that would allow you to have different people on the screen at the same time, like Kudo or Interprefy, that may be a better option if they want to have a panel. So it is better to have that discussion so that you can advise on the best fit. And also explain which equipment is it that they need. So as interpreters, we have been preparing and we have been exploring about the equipment, what is the speed of the internet, what is the speed of the computer, which are the best headsets, and so on. But the clients need the same thing if the meetings are going to be taking place online. So you can then advise them on which headsets they would need, the speed of the internet, that it is the wired internet, and so on. You can then start explaining about what equipment would help them to communicate better or to have the best setting for communication, because you do not want the communication to break because of the equipment. And you can share tips with them. So that's definitely not an exhaustive list, but there are colleagues who have put together tips for the clients and also for the interpreters. And sometimes what is fit for the interpreters is also good for the clients. Andrew Gillies, for instance, he prepared 2 videos or 2 articles on LinkedIn on being seen and being heard. So they are all tips about how to look good on camera and how to make sure that your voice comes across properly without echo, etc. Another colleague, Deborah Chubanian, she prepared guides for her clients and for the interpreters who are using Zoom. So that is going the extra mile, really helping the clients. And these are some examples of posters that were created by colleagues and by associations. So for instance, on the right, you can see a poster by Madeleine Rios. And in this poster, which she prepared in Spanish and in English, she is looking at how the interpreters, how the clients of interpreting can find the interpreting function on Zoom if they are logged in on a computer or if they are logged in on a phone or a tablet. So she prepared this, and it is very visual and it is very easy to send to interpreting clients for them to be able to find the interpreting function on Zoom. The poster on the left was prepared by VKD, the Association of Conference Interpreters in Germany, and it has in it tips for the speakers about giving the documents to the interpreters in advance, about using a microphone, pronouncing names and numbers clearly, and so on. So these are some examples of what you can provide the clients to help them, because it is a two-way road. If we help each other, then the likeliness of things becoming easier and better for both, making the experience better for both, is going to be higher. And insist on having a dry run, insist on having a test, a sound check, some organizations already put that into the contract, that when you are hired to do a job, then you are expected also to participate in a dry run, because with the technology, things are not really standardized. So if you have a good microphone and a good headset, they might work well on a particular platform, but then you move to another platform and all of a sudden you are echoey and you don't know why. So it is good that you have that test run so that you know whether there are anything, where there is anything in the setting that needs to be changed or not. And sometimes the client has a preferred platform. So if you are not familiar with that platform, it would be a good idea to familiarize yourself with it. Maybe some clients offer a training or an introduction, an orientation, a demo, whatever you call it, to get the interpreter to be familiar with the platform before they start working on it. Okay, another issue, and we are going to look into this at some length when we go to the discussion part, is the pricing, how to price your service. And this is something that we do not really have a clear formula for, simply because it is all very new. And there are some clients who think that if you are hired to work for an hour, then you get paid for an hour. Some agencies, unfortunately, are going down this route as well. So pricing is not very easily sorted compared to doing in-person interpreting, where as a conference interpreter, you would know what exactly to discuss and which questions to ask and what you can ask the client to cover. That is not very clear in remote interpreting. But there are some considerations and things that you need to think of before naming a price. So there are existing pricing models, and some of them may work well for us. Some of them are quite scary. So pricing per minute, unfortunately, exists in the United States in the healthcare setting. The per hour, you must have also received requests from agencies or from clients asking for your hourly rate. Per day is the norm for conference interpreters, and then asking you what would you charge for this according to certain parameters. So what you need to think of is the technical induction. As you have seen from the quick review that Natalia did, the different platforms, they have different interfaces, and all these interfaces, they have different features. So the fact that you can work on a particular platform doesn't mean that you can find your way easily on another one. So you would still need to spend time on the platform of choice in order to be familiar with it, in order to know how it works. So spending time on a technical induction, that is your time that we are talking about. It is not something that you are donating. It is time that you are investing in getting to learn that platform. So you need to add this to your quote time that you are going to be spending on a technical induction. And that includes also the dry runs, because sometimes the meeting would start, let's say, at 2 o'clock, but then they would ask you to log in the day before or to log in a couple of hours before in order to make sure everything works. So even though the work itself might just take an hour, you are going to be taking more time start with the testing and everything. So take that into consideration. I think by now, everybody knows that remote interpreting is more fatiguing. It is more demanding than on-site interpreting or in-person interpreting. You are mostly working on your own. Even if you are working from a hub at the moment, it is all single booths. So having your colleague by your side and helping each other and everything is not really part of the equation at the moment. You are doing quite a lot, and your attention is being divided across several screens and several things happening at the same time, with the messages in the chat, with checking for this screen for your documents and glossary, and this screen is your console, and I don't know, another screen for whatever. So we have seen so many pictures online of colleagues putting sharing their remote interpreting setting. It is tiring when we are doing work online and we are dividing our attention among so many different screens and receiving so many impulses. And there is, of course, the techno stress, because we all know technology can have a life of its own. It can stop working for no obvious reason. It can have glitches here or there. So this is also something that means that you're going to be putting more effort into a remote interpreting job than when you are in a booth and there is a technician taking care of all the technical things. Also, client education takes time. So when you are communicating with the client, when you are discussing, when you are coming up with the suggestions, sometimes you may need to meet with the clients online a couple of times to discuss different things before the actual meeting itself. So more work and more time goes into the remote interpreting preparation, not just the document preparation, that is a different story. Preparing the setting, whether discussing with the client, whether agreeing with colleagues on how you are going to go about things, that all takes time, and this time needs to be compensated. Also think of this, do you have your own studio? So did you allocate a room in your house which you soundproofed and you bought new equipment and you made it ready for remote interpreting? This is all investment in the equipment and in making this room ready that you need to recuperate. So this needs to be incorporated into your quote. If you're going to be working from a hub, maybe the hub is not in your own city. You still need to travel, you still need accommodation and per diem and so on. So that is something that you need to incorporate into your quote. If you are a consultant interpreter and you want to offer the client a turnkey solution, that is, again, something that you would need to charge for, because if you have a meeting with the client and you listen to what it is that they require, you will need to go and do your homework, look at which platform is best, look at the different elements to make this job happen the best way possible. You will be hiring colleagues, preparing their contracts, and so on. So there is quite a bit of work that you need to do as a consultant interpreter to get the job done. So probably it is best if we do not think in terms of hourly rates or half-day rates, etc. Let's think in terms of project rates. So look at your daily rate maybe as your minimum, and then look at what kind of elements you will need to add on top of this for this project to be fairly compensated. So we all work in different markets and in different countries, and we may have different ways of calculating our fees, but you need to remember that the clients already are making quite a bit of savings on the travel, on the hotels, on the per diems. So the interpreter's fee, it is quite justified that actually goes up and not down because of all the extra effort that we put into remote interpreting work. But we will discuss this more when we are in the discussion part of the day. And then also think of your terms and conditions. Usually, we would have contracts with our clients. Maybe you need an amended contract or even a special remote simultaneous interpreting contract that specifies the work hours, the team strength, because the work hours to start with, we can no longer work in stretches of 3.5 hours and then a lunch break and another 3.5 hours. It is just way too exhausting, and if we do it now, it may not be sustainable. So the trend that I've seen is that the meeting times are getting shorter, but if the meeting time is long, you may need to consider adding a relief team or adding more interpreters to the team. Also think of your liability, because you may have done everything possible to get ready, but there are things you cannot guarantee. You cannot guarantee a power outage in your area. You cannot guarantee that the internet is not going to drop on the day. So there are disclaimers. There was one that was prepared by UTIC. There are other disclaimers as well. So having a disclaimer that you are not liable if something goes wrong with the technology, that is something that's important to add to your contract. And also think about recording, because recording, when we are working in a face-to-face setting, it has a separate compensation that does not go away with remote interpreting. On the contrary, with remote interpreting, you may be recorded. It is easier to get you recorded. So think of the compensation for the recording as well when you are working in a remote setting, and add that to your contract. And then let's look then at a quick review of the professional associations, what they have done. Andrea was talking about how there are no standards, and that is true. There are no agreed upon standards for remote interpreting, but several associations are working and have been doing quite a bit of work for a while in order to have standards for this new type of interpreting. So let's start with UTIC, that held a number of awareness-raising sessions in different parts of Europe and in the Middle East. And in these sessions, they had discussions, they had awareness-raising. Sometimes there was also a chance to try the platforms. And based on this, they issued a set of guidelines on distance interpreting, which is available on their website. But their recommendations also got updated with the COVID-19. So you may want to check that. There is also a checklist with things that interpreters need to look at. So do educate yourself about what guidelines are out there. My home association, the Institute of Translation and Interpreting, they have a position paper. And in the position paper, they recognize that there is potential for remote interpreting. However, they also recognize that remote interpreting can be more fatiguing, that interpreters feel distant from the proceedings, and there's also discomfort that could set in that could lead to quality dropping. And ITI recommends that we should have communication channels open with the developers of remote interpreting platforms, so that interpreters can be informed of the risks of the different issues, but also we need to more research in order to have universally accepted standards for remote interpreting. Also that remote interpreting must not really be seen as like for like or as an exact replacement for in-person interpreting. It is useful for some settings where usually the meetings would not be interpreted, but it should not be seen as an exact replacement for in-person interpreting. There is also ASCOT, which is the Czech Association of Conference Interpreters, and they have a good set of recommendations for technical requirements that is available on their website. And there is also the VKD. In Germany, they have a position paper that looks at how there are no standards again, but that we need to work on standards for the team strength, the length of service, and so on. They point to the legal aspects, the permission to record, copyrights, liability, etc. And they are, as far as I know, the only association that looked at how remote interpreting platforms do not have haptic controls. There are no buttons to touch, which works to the detriment of visually impaired or blind interpreters. So there is only one platform, as far as I know, that does have haptic controls, which is All You Say, but that is something to be developed for other platforms in order not to prevent or hamper our colleagues who are visually impaired from working in a remote setting. There is also CDC, and they are the Hellenic Association of Conference Interpreters, and they have gone as far as deciding that a workday is maximum 4 hours, including breaks. So that is very clear instruction there. And that this is a full-time day, that is not part-time. And if the day exceeds 4 hours, then a third interpreter should be added. They prefer the hub model, where you work in a hub with a colleague instead of working from home. And they recommend the fee for remote interpreting to be higher than in traditional interpreting. There is also the SFT from France, and the SFT, they see that the way that meetings are held remotely, they need to be adapted, because remote interpreting does not really lend itself to quick exchanges because of the lag and the delays and so many factors, technologically speaking. So the exchanges need to take that into consideration. Also, the daily fee for remote interpreting needs to be higher because of the higher cognitive load that the interpreter undergoes. They recommend the job in a remote setting to be 2 hours, and they recommend also that interpreters add that they have the right to interrupt the interpreting if they are not getting quality sound or quality video and so on. They think that Zoom, for instance, is not good for or not fit for simultaneous interpreting, but for consecutive interpreting. So as you see, different associations have different opinions. So the standards are not universal yet. We are maybe on our way to creating something, but it is good to be aware of what the different associations are doing. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. There must be other associations and guidelines there that I'm not aware of. So please let me know if you know of ones that I have not mentioned. And then we come to your role, and that is going to be the last bit that I want to talk about before we move to the discussion. I see the role of the interpreter in such a setting, in a remote interpreting setting, that you need to educate yourself so that you can advise your clients. And I would say then, after you've educated yourself, you can start being proactive. You can have the confidence to be proactive. You can approach your clients, and you can offer to help them turn their meetings into online meetings or virtual meetings if there is no other way. You may want to work on preparing guidelines for the clients, because them getting it right is also in your interest. And I think it is important that we have discussions, whether within our associations or within our regions, with colleagues regarding the standards. It is important that we have some agreement on some broad lines, how we are going to charge, how long is the work day, how many interpreters should be there in a team, and so on. So these are things that we need to discuss in order to be able to have progress there on having standards. So that's what I wanted to say. And then these are my contact details. If you would like to get in touch, please do. I'm now going to stop the share and then seek advice from Victoria regarding moving to the online discussion bit. So how are we going to do that?
Thank you very much, Maha. How are we going to do that? Because I've been told that you know how you move into Zoom. You are moving there, you and Natalia, and after that you are moderating it, no?
Very good. Okay, so everybody then knows how to join us on Zoom?
Yeah, for everyone who is watching us online, you got email with the link where you're going to have this Zoom session with Maha and Natalia. And also you can find the link on our website at UTIC website. Please join the ladies and where you will have some practical cases on RSI.
So for us to start our Zoom session, and we are already on Zoom, do we log out of VMIX call or do we leave it as it is?
Yeah, you don't need to
I
log
suppose
out.
yes. So we're logging
We log out
now.
Yes.
Right.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And
Thank
we'll
you
see
very
on
much.
Zoom.
It was very interesting. And
Yes.
actually, it was the answer to my questions that I was looking for 4 weeks. The answer is still there are non-recommendation that our new working day is 6 hours, not 8 hours anymore. But okay, whatever. At least no one is having it, not like me. Okay, ladies, thank you very much, and have a very good Zoom session.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria.
Bye.
Thanks. We'll see you on Zoom then.
See you.